Hello and welcome everybody to our new episode on systemic thinking, systemic therapy, counseling and team supervision. My name is Jens Förster. I'm a systemic coach, therapist and supervisor, and I'm here in my office at the Systemic Institute of Positive Psychology in Cologne in Germany. So you might be already surprised why I started this presentation in English, because usually I do it in German and I explain to people how systemic therapy works. I would present methods, I would present theories, I would present new ideas that might inspire therapists out there. Today I have a surprise for you, because today I have a special guest here, Nira Liberman from Tel Aviv University. Professor Liberman actually designed, together with Yakov Truppe from New York University, the Construal level theory of psychological distance. And I thought it would be important to talk about distance, about psychological distance, because this is an important psychological factor. And we have experienced distance the hard way during the last 1.5 years, during the Corona crisis, right? I mean, we couldn't see our relatives, we couldn't meet our friends. We had to do internet counseling, teaching and supervision. And we wondered what might be the difference between live coaching and, for example, internet coaching. And thus I had the idea to give Nira the opportunity to present her theory to practitioners. And while I was working on the entire material, on the interview, on Nira's PowerPoint presentation, I decided to actually produce two different versions. There will be a longer version presenting the entire thing, the entire discussion, the entire presentation, an introduction to Nira's work, and so on. And for the more impatient ones amongst you, I will also present a shorter version, and the shorter version will only focus on internet counseling, therapy and supervision, because I thought this is terribly important. And I would also like to add that I am an editor of this journal. It's a Systema, a German journal on systemic thinking, coaching and therapy. And it is the journal published by the IF Weinheim, the Institute for Systemic Thinking, Development and Education in Weinheim, Germany. I'm a trainer at this institute and I'm also an editor, and I will publish a shortened version in English and a shortened version in German in this journal. And now we'll start right away with the shorter version. In the longer version of this work, Nira Liberman will explain to you the entire theory in more detail. However, in this shorter version, let me just summarize the two basic assumptions. The first assumption of Construal level theory of psychological distance is that all the distances are related in the psychological system, meaning that spatial distance, temporal distance, social distance and hypotheticality are all related in our psychological system. So to give you an example, for example, if I think about traveling to a distal place, like for example to Australia, I usually think about it in the distant future. I think about it as a distant place, and I think about meeting people that I'm not used to, people that are strangers, that are socially distal to me. I also think that probably I will do things that are more unlikely, meaning that they are high in hypotheticality. The second assumption of CLT, Construal level theory of psychological distance, would be that distance is related to an abstract thinking mode, meaning that I would think automatically about distal events in more abstract ways. For example, if I think about traveling to Australia, I construe it in my mind as something that's more abstract than, for example, the place I used to live, like Cologne, which is just naturally much more concrete to me. I know the streets, I know the people, I know the buildings. Australia just is a very unknown place to me, and thus I construe it in more abstract ways. I also construe the people in more abstract ways, meaning that people that are socially more distal to me appear in my mind as something that's a more abstract category of people, like a social group of the Australian people. And if I think about my future, I also don't have many details about what would happen in, for example, 1 year. So again, I would construe distal events, temporally distal events, as something that is more abstract. Thus, all the distances are related to an abstract mode of thinking. Okay, this being said, let's have a look at the implications of Construal level theory of psychological distance for video and internet counseling, therapy, and team supervision. Which brings me to the new situation that we have. We have a lot of internet counseling, internet therapies, and well, if I ask people, so how does it feel? Usually they are very, very satisfied with the result. So you can actually do this. I mean, we, now been communicating for more than an hour, and it feels like fun. It still isn't the same, of course, if you would drink the coffee together, and sometimes it's difficult for me to really describe the difference, because it works. I see your face, I can see your emotions, and as a therapist, I can efficiently work with this, and I actually even prefer this situation over a situation wearing masks, because then something is really disguised. So what I don't see is, of course, your legs. If you are nervous, I cannot see you moving your legs and stuff like that. But from my experience, that's not so important. And of course, people need treatment right now. There's no way that we cannot do this or can say that Zooming, Skyping is stupid. I mean, we do this, it's efficient. But how would you describe this difference? Because it is being close. I mean, even like if I look at the room now, you're very close to me. Still, it's distant, of course. You are in Tel Aviv, I'm in Cologne. How would you construe this situation? Is this even applicable to the theory? Let's go back to the theory. Maybe that's easier than just describing the feelings involved. But how would it fit?
I think what you're, I mean, it's an anomaly, right? So like, as you said, I mean, typically distances go together, which means that you typically live around people whom you like, and you like people who you live around, and you are more likely to meet them, and it will take less time until you meet them next time. So all these distances go together, like social, spatial, temporal, hypotheticality. They tend to go together. Sometimes they're violated. So sometimes, for example, you have a very close friend who lives on another continent. This happens, but then it's an anomaly. What it means is that it produces what they sometimes call friction. It feels wrong. There's something wrong about it. And so there is a sense of wrongness, and there is a pressure to fix the wrongness. To either, so sometimes relationships, like long distance relationships, are at the dangers. We know, right? We know that. Or there is a pressure to close the spatial distance, to go move together. I mean, so that we understand that. Now the question is, I think, whether people experience remote communication as an anomaly that calls for fixing, or not, or would they adapt the type of communication to the new medium?
That's an interesting part, because what I can see is, for example, if I do seminars and trainings, I have been doing this for 1.5 years now, and I'm getting the best results, because, and then if I look at the results, there's no difference between like giving seminars in presence or via Skype or Zoom. But then if I ask people, when I meet them eventually, they tell me that the presence is a huge difference. that it feels much, much better, and that they won't go back to Zoom or to Skyping. And that's an interesting part, because it is such a discrepancy between the immediate results, the immediate evaluations of the training. You don't see any difference. So it's all, yeah, great and stuff. But then what I think is probably the result is this feeling of wrongness, this feeling that there is something wrong with it that would not be felt if you just sit together in the old-fashioned way, just in the seminar room on your chair, having your coffee together. Still, I mean, it's a more complex difference maybe, but I just think that, yeah, I mean, it feels, I can relate to this. It feels wrong, but is it the case because we are just not used to it? I mean,
I think it goes back to what you said earlier, is that, I mean, it's just different. It's not like better or worse, and you can adapt to it. You can take actually advantages out of it. And I think there are advantages, and people will learn to use them, but it's different. And I think it's not better or worse. It's just like another thing, and it's interesting to think about how to capitalize, how to make the best out of the distal communication, and it has been around in teaching too. So in teaching, you know, I mean, universities introduced all kinds of things, you know, more videos, more games, more group discussions that are easier, and these are all advantages. And the disadvantages are there too. So now we have like two types of therapy that you can do, like in person. And I agree with you that it's very interesting to articulate the difference and to kind of like design slightly different sessions. I'm sure you are already doing that.
Yeah, but is it, I mean, would you predict that we talk unconsciously, maybe more abstractly via internet counseling? I mean, would this be a predicted effect by your theory, or is it too fuzzy, the situation, that you cannot even predict anything? What would you predict?
I think we could predict it. I think unless, okay, in principle, yes. I mean, you think you are supposed to do like to be more abstract, unless you actually want to overcome the distance and make you know, and try to bring people closer. And then one of the ways to do that is to talk concrete. If you talk concrete, people would feel closer to you. So if you say things like, oh, look, I have here my son's posters, then people feel close to you because you kind of like, you gave them this little detail about your life, and that's very concrete. But it's part of the same theory, right? It's part of the same theory. So now you use concreteness to close the distance gap. Instead of like reacting to the distance by being abstract. I think also abstractness comes from not only from the remoteness of the audience, but also from this idea that you are being recorded, and that some people will watch you in a different situation. Like, right, recording makes you kind of like abstract, try at least, I mean, should make you try to abstract yourself out of the specific situation.
Yeah. But then, I mean, this would be terribly important, because people just ask me, you know, how to do therapy via internet, via video communication. And one of your advices would be, if you want to create closeness, social closeness, then watch your language, basically, observe your language. And one of your recommendations would be to be more concrete. Is this what I can take? I mean, of course, I mean, I know you, and you always contextualize your such recommendations. It's not in every situation, but as advices you can give from on the basis of your theory would be to be more concrete.
Yeah, I think be more concrete, or you know, situate people. I mean, so we are here together, so we are in two different rooms, but give me a little if you want to, you don't have to. A little tour of your office.
I mean, that's funny because intuitively this is what we do. So one of the rituals we have in our institute is if I have like many people, I ask them to go through their apartments and to find some symbol that kind of signals or reflects their mood or their self, and then I put, for example, like the animals like this, and say, now I feel like a goose, I'm alert, and stuff like that. I mean, that's something that we actually do intuitively in order to create something that's more cozy. I think this was the intention. And of course, to use the space that we usually don't have. I mean, we are not in the apartments of our clients. And one of the ideas, I think, was to use it, to make an advantage out of it. But I think we never thought about like that this could create closeness, that this could create some kind of feeling of being closer to the clients.
Yeah, that you can. It's interesting that you nevertheless share a situation, right?
Yeah. We share a situation, there is some similarity because everybody has to do it. So this is also maybe creating some kind of similarity. And there is something, I mean, we had some research that's showing that a similarity might be related to closeness. Dissimilarity is more remote, is more something that creates distance. I mean, it's already in the words, but maybe it's not trivial that if you create differences, this might also involve some kind of abstractness and might create some kind of distance, which is also not good or bad, but it should be used with some consciousness involved that we that this could have different effects.
Yeah, I was in some session where they asked people to change their names, but not change, like, it's not that I'm not Nira Liberman, but they add like something to the name, like I don't know, session with Jens, Nira Liberman, Tel Aviv University, something, and then there is a something that unites, you see on the screen a name of a person or a title that is created for the situation. And it is, if you have like a few participants, it's the same across participants. So that's also somehow unifying them. And so it creates some...
I see that you put something like, for example, the name of the company behind your name. And
something,
okay.
Yeah.
Or the conference, or
the conference, or something,
Thank you, Nira. I mean, this was a very, very inspirational talk, and I gained a lot of new insights and new ideas for therapy and counseling and team supervision. Thank you, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, Jens.
Okay. So this was the shorter version of my interview with Nira Liberman. If you want to watch the entire PowerPoint presentation by Professor Liberman, please just visit our channel, Nussbaum and Förster. You will find very soon a longer, extensive version of this entire work. See you soon. And never forget, everything could be very, very different.